Hello and welcome back to the Frogs of War podcast. I'm Anthony North. That's Russ Hodges. We're going to talk all the latest news with TCU athletics. Uh, Russ, I am out in sunny Fort Worth West in Los Angeles, California, Southern California, out here on a business trip. So appreciate you staying up late here on Central Time to chat some TCU with me. It's been a long week of travel and work for me, but how's it going for you and how you doing?
Yep, I'm here at my apartment in Rochelle, Illinois, which is the exact opposite of Los Angeles, California. But no, things are good here. Excited for Memorial Day weekend. Got some family celebration. My mom's retiring tomorrow, so having a little bit of a
Congrats.
family celebration. Yep, been a long career for her in healthcare, almost 40 years. So looking forward to celebrating that, and then trying to get the golf clubs warmed up a little bit. Went out to the range after work earlier today. I don't know if you're much of a golfer, but it's warming up here, and my buddies all golf. We all try to get out, once a weekend and play a little bit. It's always a good time. So trying to get the swing ironed out a little bit, and looking forward to having a big summer here, but excited to get on and talk about quite a bit of TCU baseball stuff. We have a lot to catch up on and a lot of positive news, so really excited to get into it.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a week for TCU baseball as closing out the regular season with a series against Kansas State and then also opening the Big 12 tournament. And we'll get into all the details of it, but it's uh, don't let TCU baseball get in the zone. Don't let these frogs get on a roll because um, they're getting hot at the right time. So I think the Big 12 is certainly on notice, and TCU has very much put itself in position to feel pretty comfortable on the selection day for the NCAA tournament. But going back to last weekend as the regular season closed out in Manhattan, TCU in position, jockeying for seeding position with the Kansas State Wildcats and end up really taking the series, but probably could have gotten a sweep out there in Manhattan. Lost a heartbreaker in that first game on a walk-off. Russ, what did we see out there Thursday in Manhattan and throughout the weekend?
Yeah, let me rewind a little bit because it has
Yeah.
been red hot is not even the word to describe it. TCU baseball right now is white hot, as they would say with the Miami Heat, the Heatles with LeBron and D Wade and all them. They were white hot, and TCU right now is playing phenomenal baseball. But getting back to the series against Kansas State to close out the regular season, um, at this point, TCU was 31 and 21, had a uh, 11 and 10 record in the Big 12, so only one game above 500. And we were talking about what TCU needed to do in this series in particular to improve its chances of making the NCAA tournament. And we both, I think, were in agreement that TCU needed at least two out of three. Of course, a sweep would be best case scenario, but should TCU lose two of those games or lose all three of them, then you're going to have to make some noise in the Big 12 tournament to make your last case to the NCAA for making the field of 64. So, as you mentioned, the Thursday game, a heartbreaker of a loss, and this was a really good game. Both of these teams were going back and forth throughout the game. I don't think either team led by more than a few runs, and TCU had a 6-5 lead late in the game. Carson Bowen came through with a couple of clutch hits in this game. He was 2 for 5 with two RBIs, and Garrett Wright came on in the eighth inning, was able to get TCU into the ninth, but for the first time in several weeks, really struggled with his command in this game. He did have four strikeouts in roughly 2 innings of work, but he also had a couple of walks, a hit batter. I believe he walked a run um, in the ninth inning that tied the score and then ultimately gave up a walk-off single. So TCU losing 7-6, a really tough loss to start a series And you hope that a loss like that wouldn't be a tone setter for the remainder of the weekend. But TCU came right back on Friday, game two. Cole Klecker was nearly flawless on the mound, threw a no hitter through 6 innings. Did have 4 walks, but he had 6 strikeouts and was able to work around those walks to shut down the Kansas State offense. Cole Fontenelle went 2 for 4 with a home run in this game. Carson Bowen again 2 for 5 with a couple more RBIs, and TCU cruised in this one 8-1. So that set the stage for the rubber match on Saturday. Sam Stautenborough got the start in this one. Um, Braden Taylor carried the load offensively, went 2 for 4, hit a home run. He is getting extraordinarily hot, and we will get into more Braden Taylor news in a little bit. But this is another game that was very well played on both sides and went down to the wire. Garrett Wright came back out to go for the save. I was a little concerned because he threw 36 pitches in the game on Thursday and was coming off of only 1 day of rest. So I think in most cases you probably don't want to throw a pitcher on 1 day of rest after throwing nearly 40 pitches. But I think the situation TCU was in, really needing a series victory to make more of a case going into the NCAA tournament. Garrett Wright was put back out there, and Elijah Nunez came through with the best defensive play I think you will see from TCU baseball all season. And we've seen Austin Davis flying over walls in the outfield. We've seen Luke Boyer sliding into the wall in left field. Anthony Silva has been phenomenal at short, but this play by Elijah Nunez in the ninth inning, Garrett Wright gives up a deep fly ball to center field, and if this ball had another 2 or 3 feet on it, Kansas State walks off again. And there's even more heartbreak for TCU going into the tournament. And also, uh, hurt in the jockeying for positioning in the Big 12 standing should TCU lose the game. But Elijah Nunez goes over the wall, snags the ball for the final out of the game, and TCU survives 4-3 on Saturday. It clinched the save for Garrett Wright, his fourth of the year. It clinched the win for TCU, and it clinched the series for TCU, who finished the regular season 33-22 and 13-11 in the Big 12, and also moved up to number 4 in the Big 12 standings going into the tournament. So, um, a potentially season-saving defensive play by Elijah Nunez, and it set the tone for what we're going to get into a little bit with these Big 12 tournament games. But we talked about it last week. This was a series that TCU had to have against a proven good baseball team, and by the skin of their teeth, the Frogs got this series and will have a much stronger case, I think, for getting into the NCAA tournament now.
Yeah, just to comment on the Elijah Nunez play because it is simply yes, one of the most incredible. Just like the impact of that play, there are robbed home runs that happens, every once in a while throughout a season and while you're watching, but for it to be 2 outs in the ninth to save the season, I mean this is winning that game to take that series on the road in Manhattan is may have alone been enough to put TCU into the big tournament before even this hot streak into the conference tournament. But the impact of that play and yeah, to save Garrett Wright's skin after he has a really strong eighth inning in that first game in the Thursday game, closes the door in the eighth inning with the big strikeout, but gets a hit batter, gets a wild pitch and a walk, and things kind of fall off the rails there. For that to then happen again on Saturday would have been really a tough look for the guy that right now you're is the person you're most confident in that situation. So to be able to save his skin, to save TCU baseball's season, um, just to we're gonna look back on that play as like that's the turning point. That's the moment in this season where TCU baseball returned to being TCU baseball that we saw it in Arlington to open the season, and now we're beginning to see in Arlington continuing into the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, and I guess to go ahead and just dive right into what we've seen over the last couple of days. So TCU drawing the number 4 seed for the Big 12 tournament, which meant a rematch with Kansas State right away in the opening round, with Kansas State falling to number 5. And um, a little bit of unfortunate news to start the week in that Luis Rodriguez is not going to be available in this Big 12 tournament. Kendall Rogers, a leading college baseball insider, tweeted out that Luis Rodriguez is dealing with a shoulder impingement that should not affect him should TCU qualify for the NCAA tournament, but he will not be able to pitch in the Big 12 tournament, which is a really notable loss because over the last few weekends, he's been your series opener in terms of, he's been getting the ball on Fridays, or in the case of Kansas State on Thursday, he got the ball then. So Kirk Saarloos was forced to make an adjustment there, and Cam Brown actually pitched in the first round matchup against Kansas State. Now, Cam Brown, we've talked about, has had a pretty forgettable season, a guy who came in with experience, high expectations, has just struggled mightily with the command this year. He did have a very good relief outing in the Kansas State series. He threw 3 innings, he struck out 5, he had no walks, looked very sharp, probably the sharpest that he's looked in maybe a month and a half. Um, was able to work around some trouble in this game. It was very much a mixed bag from him. He got the start. He only gave up 1 hit and 2 runs, but he did walk 6 batters. That was an issue. You hate to see that after a really encouraging outing last weekend, but it didn't matter because the offense exploded in this game. TCU came out right away and took the lead, and it was everybody getting involved. I mean, let me just read through some of these numbers here. Braden Taylor went 3 for 5 with a home run, had a career high 6 RBIs in this game, hitting out of that 3 hole in the TCU lineup. Carson Bowen, who has been moved up to the 2 hole in the lineup, a perfect 4 for 4 at the plate in this game with a couple more RBIs after having a really nice series against the Wildcats last weekend. Elijah Nunez, we talked about him last week. Curtis Byrne, also talked about him last week. 2 guys that are really heating up. Nunez had 3 hits in this game. He scored 4 runs, had 3 RBIs out of leadoff hole. Curtis Byrne hit a rocket home run to left field in this game, had a couple RBIs. TCU was up 10-0 after 3 innings. This game was basically over after the third inning, which was nice because TCU did not have to burn any high leverage, medium leverage arms in this game. I believe it was Jax Traeger and Chase Hoover, 2 freshmen, that pitched the last 3 2/3 of this game. But TCU coming out and making a statement in this game. 16-3 in 7 innings was the final score of this game. This was held yesterday morning, a 9 a.m. start time for this game. Kind of an unusual start time with the tournament schedule and how many games need to be played. But TCU coming out right away and controlling the game from start to finish in a neutral site. Globe Life in Arlington is kind of becoming like a second home for this TCU baseball team. If you recall, a few weeks ago against Baylor, they had to move a game there because of weather. TCU wins that game. They had a series at Globe Life very beginning of the year where TCU destroyed Arkansas, destroyed Vanderbilt, and now destroying Kansas State. TCU has been, it's kind of a theme this year, is TCU has been very good in neutral site games. I believe they are 8-2 on the season now in neutral site games. I don't think the Baylor game was technically considered a neutral site because it was supposed to be a home game, but it got relocated due to the weather. But TCU has shown up in the MLB ballparks this year, whether it's Minute Maid or Globe Life. And um, after destroying Kansas State yesterday, TCU got a second round matchup today against Kansas. And this was an interesting matchup because Kansas came in as a number 8 seed. It's a weird layout in the Big 12. You only have 9 teams in baseball, so there's one unfortunate school that is banished from the tournament every year. That was the Baylor Bears this year, but Kansas actually came out and hit a grand slam against Texas and won that game 6-3. So the number 1 seed Texas sent to the losers bracket right away. Also, Oklahoma State and West Virginia sent to the losers bracket as well. So TCU is right now the best seed in the winners bracket, and the Frogs came out in this game this afternoon. Again, the offense just destroyed Jayhawk pitching from start to finish. 19 total hits in this game for TCU, and this was after putting up 17 hits in the game against Kansas State. 14-4 was the final score today. And again, allow me to go through the list here because it is everybody getting involved once again. Braden Taylor, 4 for 5, hit his 45th career home run, and that put him in first place all time on TCU's career home runs list. So, congratulations to Braden Taylor as his TCU career likely comes to a close this season, going out in white hot fashion at the plate. Logan Maxwell, Curtis Byrne, Cole Fontanelle, they all went 3 for 5 in this game. Anthony Silva, Trey Richardson, they went 2 for 5. Silva also had 3 RBIs in this game. Cole Klecker got the start, only went 3 innings, didn't have his best stuff, ran into some trouble early in this game. It was actually a 5-4 ball game until TCU scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 6th inning. Austin Davis had a sacrifice fly in the 7th, and then TCU closed it out with 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th. So 14-4 in 8 innings, another run rule victory for TCU. Luke Savage had a really nice relief outing in this one. He went 3 1/3, gave up only 3 hits, a couple of strikeouts, only 1 earned run, and then Ben Abelt pitched the final 1 2/3, did not give up a run either. So TCU is now in the winners bracket finals, 35-22 now on the season. They will play the winner of the Oklahoma Texas Tech game that is currently on right now. Last we checked, Oklahoma was winning 5-3. I'm not sure where the score is at there right now, but um,
Well, I think they wouldn't they have to play. I think they play somebody else before that, right? Do
I
they
they
play?
might. I feel like you want to reward the teams that go win-win, right? Isn't it? You have your round of 8, and then you have 4 winners there, so then you have your round of 4, and then you're going to have 2 winners, and then I think the loser of the Saturday game would play later that day against whatever team makes it out of the losers bracket, and then
Okay,
that winner, you'd basically have the winner of the losers bracket against the winner of the winners bracket for the championship. I think that's how it
is that
goes.
how it goes? See, I thought it was like the two brackets are split, and then the winner of each side of the bracket ends up playing each other, and like so there that Kansas State would play Kansas tomorrow, and the winner of that game would play TCU, and the winner of that, if it's TCU,
Mhm.
would go to the
See if
championship. If
see if you
TCU loses,
can
then they play
Yeah,
twice.
see if you can pull up the schedule right now. I want to say they play either Texas Tech or Oklahoma, but I could be wrong. Anyway,
Okay,
I
yeah,
believe it would be Saturday. TCU's next game, I think, would be Saturday. I think they would play
yeah,
Saturday, and then if they win, they would play Sunday in the
for the
championship.
championship.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely how it is, and it doesn't matter who they're playing. They're gonna wipe the floor with them. That's how it's gonna go. So, yeah. To these games, back to this first Kansas State game. Um, yeah, this game started 7 a.m. out here Pacific time, and I had this whole plan. I was gonna go like pick up some breakfast and go sit on the pier and like look at the waves and watch the game. on my phone before I had to get to these meetings, and I got in the car and had it on the radio on the app there, and before I couldn't even get to the Starbucks. I was barely out of the parking lot of this hotel, and the game was over. I mean, it was basically over. It was 5-0 almost immediately, and so I didn't have to stress too much about having my breakfast with the beach, but um, it was just so fast. And really, Kansas State had an opportunity to break the game open super early, first inning. They had runners on, maybe bases loaded, if I'm remembering, but um, TCU kind of wiggles off of that situation and then comes right out and just smashes. And to run rule 2 games, it, I don't know that. I mean, I don't think TCU did that in the Mountain West days. This is like we're talking about Big 12 baseball. These are all teams. The Kansas State team is now maybe falling towards bubble territory, but is very likely a tournament team. And Kansas had just taken down Texas the day before, so just really impressive stuff. And you get to save all of that bullpen. You don't have to play deep into the day. These short games where you you get to walk off the field with huge victories after not even a complete 9 inning game. I'm sure there will be plenty of stress and drama to come in the remaining rounds of the Big 12 tournament and into the NCAA tournament. But it's been kind of nice to just have some relaxing baseball to run away with some wins and set up for a really exciting opportunity through this weekend and then into the tournament next week.
And you are correct, so that TCU will play on Saturday and this is what makes no sense to me. They're going to be playing at 9 a.m. again on Saturday, and they will play the winner of Kansas State and Kansas. So you are right that it's kind of divided
Okay.
into two. I don't know why they do it that way. That makes no sense to me personally. Like you're only going to play really two or three other teams in the tournament, which is an 18 field. Like you'd think you'd want
Yeah,
to
you
reward some of those teams that are winning those early round games and not really rewarding
yeah.
the losers. But um,
And it could mean you have 3 games against Kansas State
yeah,
after just having 3 games against Kansas State last week. I mean, that's
yeah.
crazy.
So it will be Saturday at 9 a.m. Streaming on ESPN Plus, and then the championship game, should TCU win, would be played on Sunday at 5 p.m. If TCU loses Saturday morning, they would play at 4 p.m. later that day. So going to be a very eventful weekend for TCU baseball as the Frogs look to uh, take home a Big 12 tournament title and just continue a scorching hot, now 13-2 since the month of May started, is TCU baseball. So just an incredible stretch of baseball being played right now when we thought TCU was kind of dead in the water late in April with the way the season was trending. Guys struggling, pitchers struggling, hitters struggling. Um, this team has really turned it around and cast away a lot of doubt. So um, before we get into some of our other stuff, I guess I'll just hit on the last piece of TCU baseball news, and that the Big 12 gave out its all conference awards and named its all freshman team. TCU baseball had 8 players in total who were honored earlier this week. Braden Taylor is the only player that made first team. Not a huge surprise there. The man is absolutely mashing the ball right now, and he's been such an integral part of TCU's success on the offensive side. So, congratulations to Braden Taylor. Also, Garrett Wright and Anthony Silva, the freshman, making the All Big 12 second team. So, I think that says a lot about those two guys, specifically Anthony Silva as a freshman, the preseason freshman of the year, coming in and really living up to the hype. In my eyes, even exceeding some of those expectations with what he's done at the
Yeah.
plate. So, um, four players earning honorable mentions: Cole Fontanelle, Cole Klecker, Carson Bowen, and Luis Rodriguez. So three freshmen for TCU earning all Big 12 honorable mentions. And then lastly, the all freshman team, TCU has four players on the list: Cole Klecker, Anthony Silva, Carson Bowen, and Ben Abelt. And I think I could be wrong, but the four all freshman honorees I think is either tied for the most or the most in the Big 12 for baseball this year. So the future is extremely bright for this team when you consider that Braden Taylor and maybe Garrett Wright are the only two guys out of all of those players who could be moving on to pursue pro careers after this year. So congratulations to all those players and all those players well deserving of those awards for sure.
Yeah, before we move off baseball, I had want to go back to one thing that we you touched on a little bit, but the Braden Taylor home run that puts him as the all-time TCU leading home run hitter in all of TCU history. An incredible achievement in still under 3 seasons. Um, I, I'm putting this question to you and putting you on the spot. Is Braden Taylor the best position player in TCU baseball history?
Oh gosh, I think you have to put him in the conversation. It's unfortunate that we're not going to see him play a full 4 year career at TCU. Um, I think he would be eligible for, would he be eligible for a COVID year if he wanted to? He could maybe come back and take a fifth year. I'm not sure, but um, I think you have to put him in that conversation. I think what sticks out the most to me about him is the consistency. You look at his numbers from what he did as a freshman to what he's doing now at the end of his junior season. There has been almost zero drop off in production in terms of his power numbers, his contact hitting ability. He uses all areas of the field, and it's just been a real pleasure to watch because TCU has had, over these last few years, of course, the team has had a lot of success, but um, there are some veteran guys who have been around that have had really good seasons, but haven't strung it together in a 3 or 4 year time period the way that Braden Taylor has over these last few years. So um, I think if this continues the way that he's played over the last couple of weeks, and it's weird to think about because we haven't, I feel like on this podcast at least, we haven't really talked about Braden Taylor as being that kind of like a game breaker that we saw last year and the year before, but it's not like his numbers were really all that bad. I mean, he was hitting in the 280s, 290s. The home run power was there. I think some of the uh, singles and doubles weren't really there compared to where they were over the last couple of years, but look at what the man is doing over the last 3 weeks. I mean, it's hard to say he's carrying the offense because so many guys have been getting involved and are swinging a hot bat right now, but even with Carson Bowen being scorching hot and Elijah Nunez hitting almost 500 since the month of May started. Logan Maxwell is hitting in almost every game. Curtis Byrne is red hot. And even with all of those
Cole
guys
Fontenot,
playing
yep.
as well as they are, Cole Fontanelle has come in and just stolen and secured, locked down the first base job. All of these
Hmm.
guys have been delivering, and yet what Braden Taylor is doing right now and what he's done over the last few weeks still shines above that. So, getting back to your original question, I think he has to be in the conversation. I think you could make the argument that yes, he is, but it's a it's an interesting debate to
I'd have to go
have.
back and do the research. I was just thinking of that off the top. Like that, it's the home run thing is such an achievement, but like you said, he does it in so many ways. He's not just a guy that gets up there and it's a home run or a strikeout. It's a home run or a triple or a double or a single or a
Mhm.
walk or and he does it at a very difficult defensive position as well. And he he's maybe had a few lapses there this season more than we would have liked to see, but he still makes incredible plays out there at third base and is I mean, he's an all around contributor to everything that this team does. So I wanted to make sure we didn't take for granted what he's been doing, here lately, and excited to see what he'll do throughout the rest of this postseason. All right. I think that covers it for baseball. We hit a half hour on baseball, so that's really good. And like you said, there's more baseball to come this weekend. We'll see what happens the rest of this evening and through Friday. Get to TCU gets to sit out Friday and just be spectators, and so we'll see how that all shakes out and who TCU's opponent will be Saturday early morning. Whether which Kansas team it'll be, whether it'll be the Wildcats or the Jayhawks there in the conference semifinals. All right, moving on to some tennis. The tennis seasons for men's and women's both came to a close as their respective tournaments finished up last week. And TCU men's tennis in the NCAA tournament made it all the way to the Final Four, to the national semifinals, after taking down Michigan again in the postseason. Nice to knock off the old Wolverines, but taking down the 7 seed Michigan 4-1 in that match, and then advancing it into that Final Four against Ohio State, who was the 3 seed, and Ohio State ended up taking the contest in a sweep 4-0. Um, just an incredible season for TCU tennis. Before we get to kind of what happened in these matches, but um, for TCU men's tennis to go out, win the indoor national championship, win the Big 12 tournament, um, and and reach this far into this tournament, unfortunately unable to get to that finals match where TCU is kind of the maybe that's a little bit of the glass ceiling right now that this team needs to break through. Is this was the fifth time in program history, I believe it was, that the Horned Frogs have reached the semifinals, and TCU's made it deep in the tournament several years in a row now, too, under David Roditi, but have not been able to reach that national final and take home that outdoor national championship just yet. So still plenty to achieve in the future for TCU, and certainly, like you said, the freshmen on the baseball team, the freshmen on this tennis team are extremely talented and will be the TCU men's tennis team is going to continue to be a force to be reckoned with throughout college tennis. Um, in the contest against Ohio State, dropping the dropping the doubles point sets up for a very difficult singles path forward. And TCU had also dropped the doubles point against Michigan, but was able to really dominate through the singles portion against the Wolverines. But just weren't able to get those key points against Ohio State, and drop some early sets that could have maybe gone either direction and found itself in a hole it couldn't dig out of. So unfortunate close to the season there. I think, going into the tournament and throughout the season, we talked about how there were maybe the tiers of teams in this tournament, and I think that there were very clearly what I would have thought were very clearly three excellent teams, and that was TCU, Texas, and Ohio State. So TCU not getting that 1 seed, it forced this contest in the Final Four where you have to take on one of the other teams where you are pretty evenly matched with. And although the scoreboard is a little bit lopsided there with the 4-0, I think this on any given day, these teams could go back and forth trading contest victories. But on the other side of the bracket, Texas was also unable to advance into the finals. They made it to the semifinal as well, but um, lost to Virginia, who somehow, despite not being a top four seed, 2 years in a row comes out and wins a national championship. So Virginia tennis has something going on with their playoffs, their postseason, the way that they perform in these tournaments, that they can come out and be back-to-back outdoor national champions. So congrats to the Cavaliers, but congrats to TCU men's tennis as well on an incredible historic season for the Frogs. In the team portion ended there, but Jake Fernley and Luke Fomba were also set to participate in the singles portion of the tournament, and they were actually also scheduled to play in the doubles portion of the tournament. But I guess Luke Fomba's injury and kind of the fatigue of these matches were all right in back to back succession. But Fernley made it through his first round contest in 3 sets and then dropped his second round contest in the round of 32 to fall out of the singles tournament. So that's a round further, I think, than he made it last season. So he's continuing to progress forward, but and we'll see what he's able to bring back to the Frogs next season. But TCU really will only lose to graduation Sander Zhang and Luke Famba. So uh, it'll be another exciting year for David Roditi's squad next season, but that one closes here as we head into the summer.
Yeah, 26-3 overall record for TCU this year, and you mentioned the freshmen for this team, Sebastian Gorsny and Jack Pennington Jones were both phenomenal in the postseason and in the Big 12 tournament for TCU, and they both have an extremely bright future with this program, along with Jake Fearnley coming back and uh, Pedro Vivas and Luis Max Ted, some of these other guys coming back. So TCU undoubtedly is going to be a extremely competitive team next year, and just kind of unfortunate that they weren't able to get anything going in this match against Ohio State. And I was very surprised by how well Ohio State played in this match, considering that the Buckeyes faced Georgia, the number 6 seed, in the round of 8, and were taken to the brink in that match. I believe Georgia was actually up 3-2. There were two singles matches that came down to third sets, I believe, and Ohio State found a way to pull both of those out. So they survived 4-3 in the college football playoff side of the tennis bracket
Hmm.
with TCU and Michigan going head to head, and then Ohio State and Georgia. So Ohio State barely gets by and then turns around and sweeps TCU. And I think that just goes to show how talented that team is up there in Columbus. But overall, as you mentioned, an indoor championship for the second consecutive season, a Big 12 tournament title, and a plethora of ranked victories against some very tough teams, including uh, I guess we'll call it a season split against Texas. TCU and Texas playing 4 times and each team winning twice. Unfortunate we did not get that uh, Game 5 winner take all bragging rights matchup
I
in the
know.
championship, but nevertheless, it is another very good year for TCU, continuing the theme of highly successful, I guess we'll call them the non-rev sports this year, between equestrian and beach volleyball and rifle and now men's tennis. It's been a fantastic season all around for some of these programs that may not get as much of the spotlight as football and basketball and some of the others. So, congratulations again to head coach David Roditi and the boys on a great season for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of success in the non-rev sports, TCU women's tennis participated in the first ever women's NIT championships and took home the trophy. TCU really kind of dominated the days out there at the NIT tournament, and that women's tennis team. You know, I'm not totally sure how good San Diego, Wyoming, and Stetson were throughout the season. That's I haven't followed the women's tennis rankings as closely as on the men's side, but TCU really took it to them. I think these contests were streamed somewhere. I was able to watch a bunch of this tennis, and TCU was just clearly much better than these other teams. So maybe the NIT in the future will do a better job of inviting better programs. I'm not sure, or maybe TCU women's tennis just should have clearly earned a an at-large bid into the NCAA tournament, but TCU outclassed these teams throughout that tournament, sweeping San Diego, 4-1 win over Wyoming and a 4-1 win over Stetson in the championship to bring home the trophy. That closes the overall season record at 16-9, with Jade Otway named the tournament MVP. So congrats again to TCU women's tennis and another program on the up and performing at an elite level, taking home trophies for the Frogs. What else? What's next? We've also let's see, golf finished up all of their seasons. We talked about the men's golf season closing last week. Women's finished their tournament this week with a final finish at number 20 overall at the NCAA championship. So uh, a good finish there to reach that portion of this postseason. And we've got Sofia Barroso Sa advancing into the individuals finals. So hopefully I've pronounced
Correct.
that
I
somewhat
believe you were
close to
correct
correct.
there. So
Um, but so she's still out there competing and closes that regular season, while TCU men's golf has officially named the successor, the new head coach taking over. Uh, there is the assistant from Oklahoma, Bill Alcorn, and has a long track record of success there with the Sooners and throughout his coaching career. So, looking forward to hopefully Coach Alcorn is able to really continue this success that TCU men's golf has had and build on that to bring it to that next level going forward.
yeah, and these two programs have been basically perennial qualifiers for regionals going back 25, 30 years. And for the men's program, Coach Montegal, who I believe is retiring, has had a illustrious career at TCU, has been a head golf coach for the Frogs for I believe a career that spans over 3 decades. So
Hmm.
congratulations to him on a impressive, illustrious run as the head coach of the men's golf program, and I believe that that team, as well as the women's team, they're both going to have a handful of players coming back next season. So um, again, the non-rev athletic programs have all been tremendous this year, and maybe sometime during the summer on a pod we'll just talk about what team maybe had the best year of all of those, and give those programs a little bit more of a highlight. But they've all been tremendous, and there have been so many uh, great moments and great memories throughout the entire calendar year, going all the way back to the fall. So um, they're going to be starting back up in the fall before we know it. So congratulations to those two golf teams on another great season yet again.
All right, we at Frogs of War will continue to keep you covered on all things happening around TCU and this Big 12 baseball tournament, and as the Horned Frogs move forward into the NCAA tournament, we'll keep you covered. And Russ has got your latest recaps on these two baseball games up there on the website now. And so we appreciate all of you who follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, who listen and watch this podcast. We hope you're enjoying it, and we appreciate each of you that follow and listen to us. And yeah, with that, go Frogs, and Let's go win some titles out here. Let's go take some another road to Omaha would sure be exciting.
Give us a little something extra to celebrate on this long Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully everybody enjoys the Memorial Day holiday and doesn't get too crazy over this long weekend.
Stay safe, y'all. Go
Go
Frogs.
Frogs.